on Atmanirbhar launched by the Honorable Prime Minister on May 14th this year. Of course, this is one of the biggest reforms that has happened in the modern India. 20 lakh crores, which is almost 10% of the GDP. But after the Atmanirbhar was announced, there are lots of discussions on the real merits of the Atmanirbhar to the various sectors and to the common man. So we thought we'll deliberate this issue. In fact, Shekhar has prepared a report on Atmanirbhar, and we have presented it to all the top leaders, including the Prime Minister's office, FM's Finance Minister's office, Commerce and Industry Minister's office. In fact, Mr. Piyush Goyal had called us, and we had almost a 1 hour discussion. In fact, he was very happy on our report, and he has asked us to once again confirm few points to take it forward. So we are working on that, and Shekhar is on the job. So one of the key challenges is the MSMEs, which really took the heat, and we are also having Dr. Krasta here today. He is a specialist on MSME to share his viewpoints. So we have wonderful panelists today. Mrs. Pankajam Sridevi, Managing Director, Commonwealth Bank of Australia in India, and former President of Bangalore Chambers. Hearty welcome to you, madam. Dr. Krasta, the co-chairman of MSME Council of Bangalore Chambers and the chairman of CM Environmental Systems. And they are exporting these systems to many parts of the world, to the many continents. And Mr. Krasta is a walking library on MSMEs. He has experienced several things. So we are very happy to welcome you, Dr. Krasta. And Mr. Jayant Chatterjee, Executive Vice President of ICRA Limited. Sir, hearty welcome to you. We look forward to your valuable suggestions and healthy discussion. So this topic has been very significant for all of us. In fact, a lot of issues on the monetary side, on the fiscal side, a lot of confusions. And again, the MSMEs, still people don't get the loan on real terms. Though 300,000 crores have been sanctioned, on reality, I think I'm told it's around 180,000 crores. Still, people are taking the loan for the second time. They're able to get, but people taking the loan for the first time, still the certification process is a challenge. So such issues are still there. And again, agricultural sector has definitely got a big boost. Again, some challenges are there in terms of cold storage of foods and associated problems. And coal mining and aviation sector got the fillip. In fact, private commercial mining of coal was made possible. And the aviation sector also got a lot of FDI investment can go on. And of course, increasing the number of airports. So many positives. But at the same time, still, if you ask people the clarity on Atmanirbhar, in fact, we have a lot of viewpoints at this point of time. Therefore, we thought for the benefit of our members, we will have this great panel discussion today. And I'm sure that you will enjoy this panel discussion. And I'm sure we'll have a lot of takeaways. I don't want to take much of your time. I hand it over to my good friend Shekhar. Sorry, Dr. Ravindran, I think you set the tone. I'm sorry.
It's okay. Thank you very much, sir.
I have to do something, and then I begin. Ravindran, no, you get it.
Next slide, please, madam. Next slide. I am super excited to be present here in the midst of galaxy of stars. And before I start, I'm the master of ceremonies, which means that I have the liberty to blow my own trumpet, but I will not. I am the co-convener of the CEO Leadership Forum of BCIC, along with Mr. Shekhar. And before I begin, let me spell out the meeting etiquettes. We request the participants' cooperation on the following. Except the speakers, the moderator, the office bearers, everyone must mute the mic and switch off webcam during the session to improve bandwidth. Please keep your mobiles in silent and vibration mode. You are free to drink your own tea and have your snacks behind the camera, but not entice others. In the question and answer session for 15 minutes at the fag end, you may raise questions by typing on the chat box if possible. Otherwise, you may unmute the mic and then direct the questions to the speaker to whom you would like to pose this question. We have done several test runs every time with the best-in-class technology. But as Murphy's law says, if things have to go wrong, it will. There are minor chances of technological interruptions, and you're requested to be patient. We thank you for your cooperation and understanding. The next slide, please. I must give you a small brief about the leadership forum that has been set up by the BCIC. And this was a dream of our erstwhile president, immediate past president, Ms. Devesh Agarwal, that we must do something and be seen as a market leader in our own sphere. There is some disturbance somewhere. I think if each of you can kindly mute yourself, it will be grateful. Thank you very much. So here is a great opportunity for each of us as leaders to avail of a great opportunity of a prorated discount. I'm doing a bit of marketing, but then please join us. The membership fees for the year is about 12,000. It is prorated for the next 9 months, valid up till June 2021. We've had wonderful programs in the last 6 months, despite COVID hitting us. We've had Ms. Harish Bijur, CEO of Harish Bijur Consults, Mr. Venkatesh. He's a commentator on international trade and economic affairs. Mr. Ravi Vishwanath, Chief Financial Officer, Team Lease Services. Mr. Krishna Kumar Natarajan, Chairman, NASCOM Foundation, and founder and former Chairman, Mindtree Limited. Padma Shri, Mr. T.V. Mohandas Pai, Chairman, Manipal Global Education. Mr. P.R. Ramesh, former Chairman, Deloitte India. Mr. L. Krishnan, Managing Director, Thaigo India. Out of all of these 7 speakers that you get to see, the first one with Mr. Bajur was a physical event. Rest of them followed as a virtual event. It gives you a great opportunity to network yourself amongst the best in the industry, meet various leaders from various parts of the subsectors of the economy, and it also gives you a great opportunity to boost your own company and your own brand image, besides being a participant and also being requested by us to be one of the speakers at some point in time. So this is what this leadership forum is. You could write to Ms. Rupa or send a WhatsApp message to any office bearer. We are open to receive your request and then be entertained to join us in the BCIC Leadership Forum. The next slide, please. I would now like to introduce a person well known in the BCIC chamber. This is the past president, Madam Pankajam Sridevi. Thank you very much for joining us, Madam. She has over 32 years of rich experience in diverse segments, engineer by qualification, and then she has been building inclusive organizations with equal opportunity for all strata of the society, men, women, persons with disability, and LGBT persons. Known for bringing in large-scale automation and re-engineering to business processes, she is also the erstwhile MD of ANZ Relays in India. She has been conferred with prestigious honors such as the BPM Business Process. Am I right, Madam? BPM. Okay, let me not go to elaborate. I'm unable to understand this, but it is, I think, Business Process Management.
Leader of the year.
Sorry,
It's
Madam?
okay, you don't need to say all that.
Okay, Achiever in Global India. Award for delivering business impact through technology transformation. Super Achiever Award as a woman by the World HRD Congress for outstanding leadership. NCP EDP Helen Keller Award for making a difference to communities, and has recently won the Women CEO of the Year from GISR Foundation 2020. One thing that I will try to prepare myself better is to ensure that I understand these abbreviations before I introduce anybody in the future. Thank you, Madam, for joining us. And it came at a short notice. And then my apologies for having sent you the format a little late during the day. Next. Our good friend, Dr. Jacob Costa, founder, CM, and chairman of Enviro Systems and co-chairman MSME Council, Bangalore Chamber of Industry and Commerce, very well known in Karnataka and in Bangalore city. He has led his company from 1981, and he has been a leading manufacturer of environmental test systems across the globe, has been associated with several national and international organizations. You can see it, it is there, Associate Chamber of Commerce and Industry, ASSOCHAM, ICC, FICCI, Federation of Commerce, Chamber of Commerce and Industry, CASIA, In IIPM, there is a plantation management, board member of several educational institutions, and besides all of this, a proud member of BCIC. Also a very significant recipient of several awards and recognitions, such as FKCA Lifetime Achievement Award, Karavali Siri Award. Thank you for joining us, sir.
Thank you.
Next. Mr. Jayantya Chatterjee is a well-known person in the rating space, comes as Executive Vice President, joining us today, a finance professional with experience in credit rating, holds a bachelor's degree in technology, specializing in mechanical engineering from IIT Kharagpur, and a postgraduate diploma in management from the Indian Institute of Management, Calcutta. A person with expertise in credit ratings related to various cross sections of sectors, including corporates, infrastructure, microfinance, small medium enterprises, and public finance. Thank you, Jayantada, for joining us. I now would like to set the context before I hand over the mic to Mr. Shekhar, and let me understand as to how much well I know the subject. Please pardon me if I'm wrong somewhere. What is this Atmanirbhar Bharat mission? The economic crisis triggered by the coronavirus pandemic in 2020 has given birth to the Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan. While the idea was first proposed by Prime Minister, some of its features are similar to the Swadeshi movement launched on August 7th, 1905 to take on the British regime of the time. So what then is the Atmanirbhar Bharat mission? Atmanirbhar means self-reliant. On May 12th, our Prime Minister announced in his address to the nation an economic package of rupees 20 trillion to tide over the coronavirus crisis under the Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan. He said the economic package would play an important role in making India self-reliant and that it would benefit laborers, farmers, honest taxpayers, MSMEs and the cottage industry. He said making the country vibrant and self-reliant was the only way to make the 21st century belong to India. The 5 pillars on which the Atmanirbhar Bharat is to be based consists of economy, number 1. Number 2 is infrastructure. Number 3, technology-driven system. Number 4 is vibrant demography. Number 5 is demand. According to the government, self-reliance does not advocate a self-centered protectionist system. But there have been few controversies around the Atmanirbhar Bharat mission. The government has said self-reliant India does not mean cutting off from the rest of the world. However, some have called Atmanirbhar Bharat as a repackaged version of the Make in India drive using new taglines such as VFL, which is vocal for local. Some opposition members have spoken about how India had enacted policies and built companies since its creation to make India self-reliant. For example, Steel Authority of India Limited was created for steel production, Indian Institute of Technologies for domestic engineers, All India Institute of Medical Sciences for medical sciences, DRDO for defense research, HAL for aviation, ISRO for space, CCL, NTPC and GAIL in the area of energy, for example. These politicians have criticized the so-called advertising tactics in the repackage scheme. Some have also banned the scheme, rephrased as Fend for Yourself campaign. Has India embarked upon an untested and hybrid in nature format? That would be one of our questions. Our New Delhi has imposed some trade restrictions, but is keen as ever to invite foreign investors to trade on stock, set up new ventures, and buy into existing companies. Let me also finish by citing a case in point, but with a divergence. Atmanirbhar has been scuppered in JNPT DCI dredging deal. DCI stands for Dredging Corporation of India, which has announced a portion of the annual maintenance dredging work it secured from JNPT, which is the Jawaharlal Nehru Port Trust, one of its 4 shareholders, to a Dutch, that is a Netherlands-based dredging contractor, which in turn plans to deploy a foreign flag dredger to carry out the work. The development exposes the gap in the implementation of the Atmanirbhar Bharat initiative. Here, importantly, the public policy procurement makes it mandatory for state-run firms to issue local tenders and award contracts less than rupees 200 crores only to Indian flag ships owned by domestic firms. Most importantly, of a news item that I read recently, the term called BIBI, which is not your wife, but it is an acronym for Be Indian, Buy Indian. The Atmanirbhar story plays out differently amongst our economists, and there are three camps. Camp 1, to many, it's a silly stopgap slogan sparked by China and a dip in global earnings, which will die out when the world leaves the horrors of the COVID-19 pandemic. Camp number 2, it is the only path, righteous and sustainable. They think that not only can we produce most of the stuff we consume, but also sell millions of Kolhapuri chappals, Banarasi and Kanchipuram silk saris, and Channapatna and Tanjavur toys across the world. Camp 3, those who don't quite endorse the plan but nonetheless feel that it will be pursued and settled rules will be changed, even if the new rallying cry sounds like a catchphrase from men who are hard pressed to set another lofty goal. Through this deliberation of today, of eminent individuals drawn from cross-section of industries, let us understand in which camp we can place ourselves. Thank you very much for listening. This is the context and much beyond. I'm sure the speakers, the panelists, the moderator knows it much better. Thank you, Mr. Shekhar. Please take it over. Mr. Shekhar is the Senior Vice President of BCIC and partner Deloitte Haskins and Sells.
Thank you, Ravindran. Thanks a lot for the introduction. Thanks to everybody for joining this call. Before I take to the subject, I just wanted to give a couple of minutes on this leadership forum, though Ravindran explained. We have ambitious plans on this leadership forum. We are planning a monthly meetings for this leadership forum, inviting senior people, and we are also planning leadership conclave, BCS leadership conclave in somewhere in February or March, which would be a prestigious event for BCAC and for this leadership, which me and Ravindran are working around. So do expect more programs from this forum. And me and Ravindran are already talking to a couple of CEOs to share their expertise and their experiences. So we are working on that. And this program today, as Mr. Parasuraman said and Ravindran said, we had a discussion with Piyush Goyal where we shared our perspective on Atmanirbhar. And then we thought that we could focus. No, Atmanirbhar was introduced 3 months back, and there's a lot of implementation steps have been taken by the government. So we want to do what exactly on the implementation side and understand the challenges more from the industry perspective so that we can adequately represent to the government of India. So with this introduction, let me take the first question to my good friend and economist, Jayanta. We have the panelists has got a subject matter expert, MSME expert, Mr. Krasta. Pankajam is very well, highly experienced in industry and having a global experience, and Jayanta being an economist and thinker. So there's a very good panel we are having. So let me take the first question to Mr. Jayanta. Jayanta, there is a lot of reports about Atmanirbhar and India, whether it will become a self-reliant in 2023. There's also a talk that is going on that due to this crisis, China will lose its preeminence and China will lose its economic power, and India could be a more attractive proposition. But at the same time, there are statistics have come in where 27 to 30 industries moved out of China, but India got only 3. So you are also part of a rating organization, and there's a lot of debates that goes about the India's rating. So what is your take on this, Jayanta? Probably I would like to start from your economic perspective and also from an industry perspective. What is your take, Jayanta?
Thank you, Mr. Shekhar, and good evening to all of you. I think this is a very interesting topic which the BCIC has, put forth today. And one way of looking at this whole Atmanirbhar is that definitely there is nothing wrong in having a target of having something that is self-reliant. Every country must look at that, and every country must aspire for that. There is nothing wrong with that. My only take on this is that if we look at this, it should not remain as only mere words, because what we are seeing on the ground in the last few weeks or few months, if you say, since the time the whole package was announced, This package primarily is trying to ensure that a lot of the industries which are there should be able to manufacture things which we are currently importing on their own, whether it is pharma APIs, whether it is the thermal equipment, whether it is the medical and radiology equipment, whether it is in other fields. It is supposed to help the entire industry to manufacture these inside the country. Now, on its own, I do not find anything wrong with this thought. It's a very good thought, and one should have that. But one point which must be made about this scheme is that while the scheme is good in its overall objectives, on the ground when it is translating, we are finding that there are certain things which are hindering the progress. For example, if you see the whole package, and I'll focus on the SME part or the MSME part, the package is talking of 3 lakh crore of loans to come to the SMEs. Now, our understanding is at the current moment, the banking system, the way they look at evaluating fund flow or credit flow into this whole SME system, there is a lot of overhang of risk aversion which is clouding the mind. Now, this is leading to a situation where credit flow has to some extent been affected. Nothing wrong with evaluating a credit in its entirety and looking at the merits of the decision. I mean, that is absolutely correct. But merely, saying no to a credit because of the overall risk aversion, that is something which is hurting the entire industry. And if you see the way in which the whole scheme has been formulated, there is a government guarantee for part of the repayment, which is there to be done. So to that extent, one would have thought that the credit flow in this scheme would have been slightly better. And also in the other schemes which are there, the credit flow would have been better. But our study shows that to some extent, the credit flow has been impacted. Out of 3 lakh crore. My understanding is between 1.2 to 1.3 lakh crore has been disbursed as of now, or possibly it's slightly lesser than that. And out of that, the industries which have got this scheme also are the ones which possibly, and this is something that we are talking across the scale, are industries or in companies which are already slightly better off. So this is something which we have also seen in other schemes of the government, like the TLTRO scheme, which was announced before this, where the slightly better credits got the money, whereas the ones which were possibly needing it much more, those were the ones which were not able to get that in the right time. So that is one area in which the scheme possibly needs to look at as to how the disbursement happens so that the entire ecosystem is able to get the funds in the right time. The second point regarding this entire Atmanirbhar is that while on the ground and at the central level, possibly the government may have a lot of announcements, but when it comes to the states, we have seen the implementation in general has been a bit varying across states, and it also needs to be a bit toned up in certain states. At the same time, one must give credit to the Indian entrepreneurs. I will give you a small example of the renewable energy sector, where the government earlier had announced a very, very ambitious package of 175 gigawatts. Now, one would have thought that is it possible to do this by 2022? And we are approaching that date. But while we may not reach 175, but we would definitely have covered a lot of ground, and a lot of renewable energy capacity has come into the country. Of course, on panels and modules which are supplied by China to a large extent. Now, in terms of direction, I would think the government is able to think big, and it is able to give a lot of direction in terms of where the country should be going, heading towards renewable or heading towards Atmanirbhar. But on the ground, even in the case of renewables, I mean, if you see the way in which the module industry in India has been supported to make it Atmanirbhar, I am certain that a lot more could have been done in terms of ensuring that the module capacities are built up in India and they are able to supply to the Indian renewable sector. I mean, that is what I would call overall holistic thinking, so that each leg of the package supports the other and one is not in isolation of the other. We are also aware of how the entire industry is to some extent affected by the fact that the health of the discoms impacts the way in which the developers who put renewable power on the ground are getting paid. Some states may be good, some states may not be so good, and government has again supported them with a 90,000 crore package through PFC. Now, a more long-term solution would have been possibly to really improve the health of the discoms and be very firm with them in terms of ensuring that they come up to the standards. Now, financial health of discoms has been an issue we have been talking about since maybe the last 20 years, but we have not seen really solid progress across the sector. So my take on this is government needs to be very firm on the weaker links in the economy. And while the overall big picture is good, I think on the ground implementation, there are certain things which needs to be looked at to make it a better scheme in terms of implementation. Thank you, Mr. Sheikh.
Mr. Krasta. Mr. Krasta, are you there? Mr. Krasta?
Yes, Shekhar, I'm here.
Okay. So, Krasta, there are a lot of talk on MSMEs and Atmanirbhar. There are multiple packages announced for MSME. I'm focusing on the first package, which Jayant also touched it, 3 lakh crore. I'm coming to distress fund definition and all a little later. My first question to you, Mr. Krasta, is on 3 lakh crore. Let me focus only on the 3 lakh crore package, not on the other side. Out of 3 lakh crore package, what has disbursed so far is around 1.4 lakh crore as per information in public domain. I'm not sure the exact quantum. But when we go through the RBI report of UK Sinha Committee, which recommended a lot of structural changes for lending to the MSMEs, one of the couple of important points that was raised by the UK Sinha Committee is that MSME do not get adequate banking credit because of multiple reasons. Second, MSMEs, there is significant concentration of MSMEs in the rural area, and the rural areas are not getting the banking support. Now, out of 3 lakh crore, if it has been promised, first point I want to understand from you is that 3 lakh crore is sufficient for the revival of MSMEs, number one. Second, at ground level, is the banks are willing to support the MSMEs by advancing this sort of loans? What are the challenges that is happening, and what's your suggested solutions for that, Mr. Krasta? For the bank lending of 3 lakh crore.
Yeah, it is a good question, because as you know that Prime Minister announced this Atmanirbhar Bharat on the 12th of May. And on the 13th of May, Nirmala Sitharaman, as a finance minister, announced this 3 lakh crores government credit guarantee lending. And government will stand guarantee for the 3 lakh crores for MSME lending. Then the question arise was on what basis they will lend these 3 lakh crores. And what they said was, what is been outstanding on 29th of February 2020, on that 20% will be given to you. Now it is like a dead number, 29th of February. If anything is pending on 28th, is not available. If anything is pending on 1st of March, not available. Probably that is the reason why the 3 lakh crores, even after 4 months, disbursed amount is remained only 1.4 lakh crores. But then what happened? Nirmala Sitharaman did one more gimmick, stating that if the MSMEs are not been provided this kind of funding, even traders also can be taken this kind of funding. So now I think as of yesterday, it has gone up to 1.8 lakh crores. That is after 4 months. So 3 lakh crores, whether sufficient or not sufficient, if the people have not come forward to take, or bankers have not given, this is $1 million question. Because as you know that COVID-19 has affected most of the sufferers, apart from the hospitality and aviation and other MSME, because the entire supply chain is cut, entire labor is being vanished. So without labor, without supply chain, MSMEs cannot survive. So in fact, what we requested earlier through all the association was to give this stimulus package 20% of the sanctioned working capital limit. Instead of that, they arrived, as I earlier stated, and with that, how many bankers are given, how much is known, is 1.4 lakh crores out of 3 lakh crores. Okay, fine. Now, what is happening? Now, even if the renewal coming, renewal of the working capital limit, which is every bankers has been given to the MSME. So unless, I think, please control the sound. There's a lot of sound background.
Can you please request everybody to mute the mic, please?
May I request everybody to mute their audio, please?
Okay. Now, even the working capital renewal comes for the current year, I don't think any bankers will fund. And as you know, because we are being the all chartered accountants here, specialist in accountancy, unless and until there is a current ratio, no banker will fund. How can there be a current ratio for any MSME? Because so much of money is pending with the customer, which is not paid. So much of stock is lying there, which is now not used. So when there's so much of situation, which banker will fund? So this is another $1 million question. And especially when the public sector banks are concerned, specifically today, SBI earlier, before it is joined with the associated bank, it was very good, fantastic for MSME. But when the associated banks like SBM, SPT and Travancore all has been joined together, SBI has gone to dogs. Our chairman from the SBI in the FICCI meeting, he says, I have 100 crores in my hand. Nobody is coming for funding. No projects are pending on my table. And even the managing director of SBI stated yesterday, said that no traders are coming, because traders are also included into that. No traders are coming and taking. Trust me, if a trader or a MSME goes to a bank and gives his proposal to the manager, trust me, it doesn't even ask you to sit down. Forget about looking at the proposal. That is the situation in the public sector banks. Okay, private sector banks, they have their own norms. So that means in between this COVID-19 and this attitude of the bank, MSMEs have suffered. Probably COVID-19, almost around 30 to 35% of MSMEs are closed. Although Atmanirbhar Bharat, Prime Minister has given that pillars, 5 pillars: economy, infrastructure, system, technical system, and demography and demand. But unless and until there is a demand created by the government, how supply chain will increase? So even there is a report stating that the city limits, the GDP growth has not gone up. Whereas in rural area, GDP growth has gone up, because under Narega, so the rural person is getting money, 6,000 rupees per month, or even under Nyorgaraja, 100 rupees for 100 days. So he has got money now. Whereas in city, because salaries are not paid, or even the 50% of salaries are paid, so the urban compared to rural, urban is not growing. And you know that economy has been contracted to the extent of say 26%. When the economy is contracted 26%, now the economists say, so that economy will grow pre-COVID era only in March 2022. What happens in MSME? Probably all our association have to suggest to the government is, forget about these banks, forget about the public sector banks. There is a bank called SIDBI. SIDBI was being made only for the purpose of small scale industry, that is MSME. And NABARD is made for the purpose of agriculture. If SIDBI and NABARD can transform, reform, and refrain from all this kind of bureaucratic attitude, come out openly, that means come out from their 4 walls, all the officers, visit the MSME, studies, and give the fund immediately. Because now today any MSME survive is because of the strong zeal when the MSME or the entrepreneur has it, and the strong zeal to survive, and the strong zeal to cater to the customer. Though so-called the quality is not there in MSME, that is gone. That is gone before, say, in 2000, in 2001, 2002. It is quality is not there. All this question doesn't arise, because now the MSMEs have the high quality, and you know that export is more than 38% of the export is from small scale industry, MSME. So MSMEs are making such kind of product with real quality, but they are not getting the funding. So what my suggestion to the government and through association is, let us request the bankers to reform and transform this SIDBI, specifically funding this MSMEs. They are so far when it is formed, they are only in the refinancing. They have not gone directly into the field because they have no bankers. Because today we are in the online digital world, we don't require a physical bank. Everything can be online. So with that being the case, SIDBI has to be specifically transformed for funding our MSMEs and NABARD for agriculture. If that is done, agriculture and MSME, if they grow, and you know that agriculture is the backbone and our MSME is our buckle. So if that is the way where agriculture and our MSMEs grow, where the highest employment, MSME is 45% employment, agriculture is 55% employment. So such kind of employing two sectors, if they grow through NABARD, agriculture, and our MSME through SIDBI, I think we have done it. Atmanirbhar Bharat is definitely going to happen. So very, very significant is about say 101 defense products and aerospace products which have been now stopped importing and allowed to our MSMEs to go. So that is the reason why $56 billion was our import from China. Now it is reduced to 46.5.
Can you keep your answer very short because we have, Mr. Prasad, can you keep your answer short because we have got only 20 more minutes time.
I'm concluding, Shekhar. So out of the for $56 billion of China import, now it has come down to $46 billion. That is a clear indication that we already got into Atmanirbhar Bharat, and the 3 lakh crores will definitely has not help MSME. The people those who got is very less. So hence we have to transform and think differently with the SIDBI for MSME. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Prasad. Thank you so much. Pankajam, are you there?
Yes, I'm there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, Pankajam. The question to you, Pankajam. There's a lot of talk on interest by the global organizations in India in the post-COVID situation. People say that government has also got ambitious plan of taking the global organization away from China into India. And we have been part of the great global corporations for the last so many years, and is still continue part of the Commonwealth Bank of Australia. Now, one of the challenges global organizations talk about India is ease of doing business and consistently inconsistent on the implementation of law. So what is your take on that, Pankajam? Is Atmanirbhar alone is sufficient for the economy to revive and companies to invest in India, or is the government needs to do something more beyond Atmanirbhar? What is your take on that, Pankajam?
So, Atmanirbhar, I think, is a brand statement, a vision statement that was given by the Prime Minister. And of course, it had to come with a package, financial package, because we were going through COVID-19. But I think that self-reliance, if any country in the world, or one of the countries that can achieve self-reliance, is India. Because we have 1.4 billion people, we have scale, we can build the capability, our brains are super smart, we can do multiple things. But if I look from a global standpoint as to how we are getting support from the government, I'm just, now in the process of building another organization, and I tell you, Shekhar, it's extremely difficult. So I can understand what Dr. Krasta was telling is that, we say that MSME sector will get funds, but it's so difficult to get funds, even though there are no Nirav Modis and Malayas in MSME sector, they're much more honest. It is the same way with every process that we have to go through while we are setting up an organization. So I think, if we do not make it, and we are bringing in more and more rules. There is a DOT rule, there is a work from home rule, there is a rule for security, there's a rule for cyber security. There more and more rules are coming, but it's not making it very easy and simple. There's nothing wrong in putting guardrails, but we are putting newer and newer guardrails without looking at what were the rails that were there earlier. So I think it's difficult. There is no doubt about it. But if the leadership that is there on the government side, if they are open, this is not about processes alone. It's also about leadership. So if the leadership are open to support organizations to grow, like the way some, because we had a lot of interactions with the deputy CM of Karnataka, and I felt that he's a very technology savvy, technology driven person. So then I kind of think that I'm understood by the, the government, the local leaders, etc. So unless there is that kind of a leadership strike that in Karnataka does or India does, I think it's extremely difficult to attract other global organizations. The only reason that they were coming earlier was because of cost arbitrage. And I must tell you, and it's mostly, on the technology side, on the IT enabled side, etc., that a lot of global organizations are coming to India. And India is getting very expensive, or much more expensive than other countries like Russia and Poland and Sri Lanka, etc. So what is the attraction? What is the attraction to come to India when it is very tough to set up something, and then when the cost is high? So I think very relevant in our discussions, but it is getting tougher. And I doubt whether we will get that kind of a growth, even though organizations are growing due to the large cost pressure in the parent company. I think getting newer and newer businesses into India will be tougher unless we think of a way of simplifying our processes.
Thank you, Pankajam. Thank you. Thanks a lot, Pankajam, for the comments. Jayanta, I'm going to you. I see a lot of packages in Atmanirbhar like MSME, coal, airport, agriculture, labor law code, detailed package. While I'm happy about so many packages as part of Atmanirbhar, though I have another question which will come into the time permits, will come to the next one. But does this Atmanirbhar create that sort of what I would call a push in the economy? As he created, because Atmanirbhar announced 3 months back, now we are already in the month of September. Atmanirbhar announced somewhere in the May last week and the June first week. Have you, in the last 4 months, as Atmanirbhar, because the economic indicators does not mean the last 3 months that India, somewhere there's a growth in manufacturing, growth in anything else. So in your economic analysis, Jayanta, has Atmanirbhar created some sort of a positive push in the Indian economy in the last 3 months, in any sector for that matter, Jayanta, and what is your view on that?
Yeah, we have been analyzing quite a few sectors, over the last 3 months. And if you ask me, Atmanirbhar by itself is more of a survival package at this stage rather than a revival package. Now, why I'm saying that is because the condition of some of the industries is such that today this funding in the form of a government guaranteed debt is going to keep them alive, so that at least they can pay their salaries for their wages for their labor, and fund to some extent the working capital what is required, maybe not the whole extent. So it is a kind of a survival package. But if you are talking of Atmanirbhar to have helped revive the economy, I would say that at this stage, no. But going forward, certainly there is scope to do that. Some of the industries where we are seeing that at least there is some inkling of a revival that we can see. I will tell you, as far as manufacturing is concerned, auto and auto component industries were in a very, very bad shape. To some extent, we are seeing that things are slowly happening there. And I would not tell that it is entirely because of Atmanirbhar. Atmanirbhar has to some extent provided them the credit facilities which they need. But the revival of demand is still something which is the main impediment to their coming out of the woods. So this again is something which is going to be very, very demand led, because if the economy has shrunk by 23.9 or 24% in the first quarter, and in the second quarter also things are not looking that good, may not be as bad as first quarter, but at least it would still be negative. So to that extent, Atmanirbhar by itself would provide to some extent the credit, but the demand revival is what is going to be much more important. We are also seeing some shreds of recovery as far as the transportation sector is concerned, and that is also an indicator that goods are moving across the country. Agriculture, as was mentioned by Dr. Prasta, is definitely showing a stronger footing than the manufacturing sector, and that is something which is also leading to some movement of goods. So that is happening, but still a very long way off from a full-fledged recovery. Obviously, we know that sectors like hotels, restaurants, they are in a bad shape, and still the revival is very far away. And the Kamath committee report has also recently come out where there is a restructuring which is being planned for that. So my view is that going forward, Atmanirbhar may be a platform on which the revival may happen, but today it is certainly more a survival than a revival that we are looking at. Thank you, Dr. Prasta. Sorry.
Thank you, Jayanta. Thank you. Thanks a lot, Jayanta. Mr. Prasta, and the next question is to you.
Yes, sir.
Again, I'm focusing on MSME with you, Mr. Prasta, since you are MSME, focus a little bit more on MSME with you. I just want Atmanirbhar package. One is a 3 lakh crore, and other announcement came in the Atmanirbhar package. Two important announcements. Number one, distressed fund. Now, I would like to understand from you, whether the both are beneficial to the MSME sector, distressed fund as well as expanding the definition, number one. And probably I'm adding one more question to you connected to that. While MSMEs are not B2C, most of the MSMEs are supplying goods to the other industries, be it automobile, be it consumer goods or anybody else. So there must be a demand revival for those industries for MSMEs to survive. Now, the demand revival is ultimately a bigger subject, but is there any stopgap measure that you propose for MSMEs to survive in this era till the demand gets revived in a larger economy, Prasta? So that's my question. Let me make it very specifically. Your views on the distress fund, your views on expanding the definition of MSME, and third, what are the short-term measures that the government should propose to MSMEs for survival, stroke revival, till the demand gets revived, Mr. Prasta?
Yes, Sheikh. First of all, there's the stress funds and the fund of fund. The stress fund is for the stress account. For the stress account, that is called when it is become NPA or non-NPA. That means definitely with the stress account, when a good account, when is not been funding comes, where the question of stress account, and whether it goes through a banker, every manager looks at MSME account differently. As rightly said, we are not Nirbhav Modi or Vijay Mallya. Over a phone call, you can get crores of rupees. Not possible. So the stress account as well as the fund of fund has remained only on the paper and not flowed down. Okay, coming to the subject of the now current period, if the fund is not available for MSMEs, and if the bankers are not giving you funding, what next? Probably, if they have a good product and if there is a good customer and if it is moving forward, probably as a short gap arrangement, he has to go and beg and borrow from his friends, create an equity for himself, and instead of depending on the public sector banks or any other banker who is not giving you funding because they don't have the current asset, at least friends will trust you. Collect some money from the friends, create a equity fund for them, or if you are not a private limited company, make the private limited company immediately, because it's online, immediately you can do it, so that you share the equity with your friends and relatives and get going, provided you have a good product, good customer, that is the orders are good. And if at all you don't have any good product, and if your customers are closed, they are not able to give the orders, my suggestion is better you close down. Think different. Under IBC, I think is up to 1 crore it is available. Close down the business and do some other business. Today, lot of new opportunities are available. Even import substitute like from China. If a bindi and your or even Indian gods are made in China, Lakshmi, Saraswati, and Ganesha. So what is that? So there are so many products, including aerospace and defense products, they have stopped importing. So hunt for a new product, take the technology from aerospace, get into the new era of industrialization, and that's the only to move forward, because entrepreneur cannot die, enterprise may die, but the entrepreneur, their zeal and the struggle and the passionate for starting an enterprise is always there with you. And that is the way to go forward. To give a small example, when the pharmaceutical is facing a problem, injection molding, which was doing injection molding, they did the injection molding for plastic, for the toys. So think differently. What machinery you have, slight changes in your machinery, what you can have a new product, import substitute item. That's the way to move forward, Shekhar. Otherwise, MSMEs have to allow to go, think differently, get into the new area of subject, and your stress account and your fund of fund is only remained in the chamber. When the government credit guarantee of 3 lakh crores distributed only 1.5, where is this fund coming, Shekhar? Is a $1 million question.
Thank you, Mr. Cluster. Thank you. Friends, if you have any specific points, questions, you can put it in chat box. We will take the questions after the end of the session when the time permits, but do not wait for your turn. If you have any specific points to address as the panelists, please feel free to send a question to your chat box. Pankajam, there's a question to you, Pankajam, from me. One of the important area that got impacted is the employment, and definitely earlier service sector used to contribute was contributed to employment. The service sector is also going through a tough situation now. Unless the employment opportunities gets created and we incentivize the employment, there is going to be a huge issue on the demand creation, because without employment nothing is going to work. So what is your take on that, Pankajam? While Atmanirbhar, the coal sector, airport sector, all the infrastructure will take some time to come up and create an employment. What is your view of being a CEO of a large organization on employment creation, and how the government can incentivize employment creation, from your perspective?
So I can talk largely from the service industry, but before that, I want to really comment on what Mr. Krasta said, saying that, entrepreneurs should never die. I think I really like that. I have also an example of somebody who was, making uniforms and uniforms for kids. They started making PPE kits and they've become millionaires. So it's about grabbing opportunities. But I think on the employment side, what's happening is that organizations who have made a lot of money by exporting our talent, like Wipros and Cognizance and TCS, I'm not too sure, but other organizations, they have made multi-million dollars, but they're not standing with the team now, because they have a lot of bench in anticipation of work, and then they're paying those people and they're not getting any revenue. And the big problem that service industries are facing is that we have really overpaid the staff based on the dollars that we get for everyone's work. So when you overpay like that, and our people are also used to getting overpaid, it becomes an entitlement, So there is a big imbalance that has been created with entitlement, with the kind of cost of, doing business with India, and on the other end where the profit margins are shrinking. When I say that profit margins are shrinking, it's still in double digits, in 30% level, but that's not what the service industry has seen. So there is definitely a challenge where, our team members are asked to work on half the salary, and the bench is getting depleted. It's like last in, your first out. So there is a lot of insecurity that is building in the service industry, and that's going to continue at least for a few months. But the good thing that is happening is that even though COVID really stopped the service industry from growing for 3-4 months, like May to another 4 months, it is picking up now. And the reason why it is picking up is because the parent organizations are finding it extremely difficult to bear the cost that they have incurred due to COVID, especially, setting up infrastructure. The infrastructure costs have increased for global organizations, especially because they have worked from home and other things. So unexpected run costs have put pressure on their change costs. And because of that, they are sending more work to the service industry. So the first 4 or 5 months was hard, but we are turning around. We can see the signs of turning around. But the issue that is still there is that a lot of our engineers are returning from Dubai and US and UK. They are returning because of COVID. There is a huge list of, the list of names of people who have come back and registered with the government. So that inflow is creating some kind of, again, uncertainty in the market. But I think we are turning around.
Thank you, Pankaj. Thank you. Last question to Mr. Jayanta, then I'll be asking a very buzzer-on questions to both Mr. Krasta and Pankaj. This is also a little bit of a buzzer-on question, Jayanta. Probably you can keep your answer very short. The Atmanirbhar package, there's a view that it revives the supply side of the economy, but less on the demand side of the economy. So what are your two top-notch suggestions to the government as to steps that should be taken to revive the demand side of the economy, Jayanta?
Yeah, thank you. I think two suggestions which I would give. One is ensure that there is credit flow happening to the weaker sections of the society. And this is the segment which is going to come back and revive consumption. Unless there is consumption, there will not be demand. So this is, I think, something which is very, very critical, that the government looks at reviving demand through ensuring that the money flows into the weaker sections of the society at the earliest. The second is in terms of ensuring that all the processes which are there at the state level are aligned with the big announcements which are being made, so that the entrepreneur who is setting up does not run from pillar to post just to get his approvals and set up his industry. I think that is going to be very, very important if we have to set up industries, especially in emerging areas like defense, aerospace, etc., where if you have to compete with the international giants, you need to spend your energy in research and development rather than in running around in government offices trying to get approvals. I think smoothening that process, what we call within quotes, the ease of doing business, I think that is where the government needs to help to ensure that this happens at the earliest. Thank you, Mr. Srikhar.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Jayanta. Question to Mr. Krasta, it's like a buzzer type of question. So if Piyush Goyal asks you two recommendations to improve, I'm asking Piyush Goyal because he met Piyush Goyal. Let's say that Modi calls Mr. Krasta and Krasta, give me two recommendations for me to improve MSME. What are the two recommendations you'll give it to Mr. Modi?
Good question, Shekhar. First suggestion is, as I rightly stated the inauguration, the inaugural speech, SIDBI, convert SIDBI, reform and transform, and should be able to fund only for MSME, no refinance. And agriculture by NABARD. First. Second one, all shackles of industry, trust the industrialist, trust the people. Why your bureaucrats doubt the industry? Why Karnataka has gone to the 17th position? And why our India is on the 63rd position? Because you don't have trust. Because earlier, profit making was a crime. Those days are gone. When country like Vietnam, country like Philippines, Malaysia can cross India and go. What are we? So remove all the shackles, allow the businessmen to do the business. Anyway, the decriminalization of law, whereas government has already given that labor, land, liquidity, and the laws are changed. It is good. This is a part of the Atmanirbhar, local to local, local to local. So that's all is very good, no doubt about it. Remove all the shackles for industry and businessmen. If at all they're cheating and the cheating is being done and if the taxes are not paid, catch that particular person. Why you frame the acts and enactment? Allow the businessman to freely do the business so that pre-COVID era will come in 2021 itself, not 2022. So that is my suggestion to the government.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Krasta. Pankajam, buzzer round of question to you. If Nirmala Sitharaman calls you and asks Pankajam, give me two recommendations for me to make Indian economy more vibrant in the next coming 2 years to come out of this COVID. What will be your two recommendations, Pankajam?
The first one is to allow innovation to be the heartbeat of India. Because if you see, look at the brain drain that happens from India. The Microsoft CEO is an Indian. The Google CEO is an Indian. Why can't we have a Google in India? You know, a technology company or a manufacturing company that can build scale. We only have Tata and Reliance, and that's the end of the story. So I would tell her to bring innovation to be the heartbeat of the country, so that we have a lot of youngsters who dream big and they really make a difference to the future, not to us alone, but to the future, and we really become self-reliant. When we say self-reliant, it's about building scale. I think it's about, we just saw that, you know, there's Feluda that is coming, which is a COVID testing that Tata is bringing for 1 billion people. So I'll tell her to get innovation to be the heartbeat. And I think the second thing that I will definitely tell her is that, you know, make bank, of course, banking has to have guardrails. There is no doubt about it. But how do we make it easy for people to bank with people to bank? How do we make it easy? How do we really give the visibility on what needs to be done? These are the two questions I'll ask. I hope I'll get to meet her, Shekhar.
Definitely, we'll from a chamber perspective, we'll make it sure. That's part of the goal of Parashuraman, me and Ravindran to have Nirmala Sitharaman to talk to us.
Great. Fantastic.
Before I close it, there's a question that's come in the chat box to Mr. Jayanta. What are the various economic and trade theories that is possibly hampering creation of a vibrant and self-reliant India? So I'll repeat the question, Jayanta, again. What are the various economic and trade theories that is possibly hampering creation of a vibrant and self-reliant India?
Yeah, thank you. I think the crux of the economic theory which is hindering us is economies of scale. I think we are not looking at economies of scale when we are planning our future. And that is something which is going to be very, very important. You cannot operate at a scale which is micro or medium and expect to compete in the world. Yes, these are part of the supply chain. They have to be there in the ecosystem. But when you are planning, for example, I will give you electronic manufacturing system, EMS. Now, we are foreseeing that there will be a lot of EMS demand going to come up in India because of the China factor. And if we are able to set up scale on this one industry, there is going to be a huge potential. So on the economic front, I think government has to talk scale, think big on that front. On the trade front, I would say that one of the things which has been hampering us has been the frequent change in the tariff policies. You need to have at least some continuity and some ability to look into the future and predictability as far as our tariff policies are concerned. If that is given, I would agree with the other panelists that Indian entrepreneurs are one of the best in the world. You give them an open field, a level playing field, and you make the rules easy for them. They can compete with the best in the world. There is absolutely no doubt about that. This I am convinced about. I think that these hindrances need to be removed. Thank you, Mr. Sekhar.
Thanks a lot, Jayanta. And thank you very much for all the participants for participating in this program. And as I said earlier, we'll be having one more session again in the next month. We plan to have every month a session with the BCIC Leadership Forum, inviting some eminent people, and look forward for our invitation for the next month meeting. Thanks to everybody for participating. Over to you, Mr. Ravindran. Back to you, Mr. Ravindran.
Thank you, panelists.
I have to log off. So thanks for the opportunity. I have to log off, Ravi. Bye.
Thank you, madam. Thank you so much.
Thanks one and all for having joined this session. My only request is those who joined today, you will be receiving a survey tomorrow with about 3 questions. You are requested to kindly answer them by about mid-afternoon tomorrow and send it back to us to improve ourselves. And that's all it is. Thank you very much and have a wonderful evening. Good night from BCIC.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Krasta. Thank you, Mr. Jains, for a wonderful session.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Senior Vice President. All 3 more.
Thanks, Shekhar, and thanks, Ravindran, for a wonderful session. Thank you.